Why don't you talk a little bit about your...
Say that again, I can't hear you.
Why don't you tell us a little bit about...
Okay, so my name, well, here, I think we can get started. Actually, let me share my screen. Launch. It's loading. So anyway, I'll just give a quick introduction about myself. My name is Cece Sieffert. I'm the Deputy Director of the International Rhino Foundation. We are an organization that works to save all 5 rhino species in both Africa and in Asia. As some of you might know, there are 5 different rhino species. There's 2 species in Africa, and I think when most people think of rhinos, they think of just Africa. There's a black rhino and a white rhino in Africa, but there are also 3 species in Indonesia. I'm sorry, in Asia. 2 are in Indonesia, and 1 is in India and Nepal. So of the 5 rhino species, they're all listed at a different level of endangerment. So the white rhino is the largest population. It's the least endangered. The black rhino and the Indian rhino are endangered, but they are slowly growing. And then the Javan rhino and Sumatran rhinos in Sumatra and in Indonesia are very small populations and most at risk. So this is still loading, it's just sort of spinning, and I'm sorry. I really hope this works because I want to be able to show the pictures of the rhinos. So if you give me one more minute while I see if I can do one other thing. Yeah, this just doesn't seem to be working. Let me try screen sharing one more time. Now it's having me install something, so hopefully this will happen quickly. Okay. Oh, okay. That. Okay, we're getting there. Open. I think it's opening. I'm so sorry. Start screen share. Launch. Open. Okay, it's trying to find the application now. Okay, so start screen sharing. Looks like it's connecting. That's good. Thank you everyone for waiting. I'm really sorry about this. It says connecting, so we're getting there. Monitor. Canyon Woods Middle School. Hi guys, how are you? I'm sorry for the delay. I'm trying to get my computer to connect and it's not cooperating. But hopefully it will connect very soon. It says it's connecting, so I apologize for the technical difficulties. No worries. All right, thank you. Let me try this one more time. Start screen sharing. Connecting. Okay, good. I think we're there. Great. Now, oops. Sorry, let's try this one more time. Start screen sharing. Open. Monitor. Connecting. Full screen. Can you guys see my monitor? Rhinos in crisis. So, can you guys see this? Yes? Yes, we can. Okay, great. Thanks, Josh. All right. Thank you all for waiting. So, as I said, my name is Cece Sieffert. I'm the Deputy Director of the International Rhino Foundation, and I'm thrilled to be here. I'm sorry for the technical difficulties, but I'm really excited to speak with you all today about rhinos. So some people see rhinos and they think, oh, they're like living dinosaurs. They are not dinosaurs, although they do have horns and very thick skin. And they are not an extinct species yet. We are working very hard to save these species. And they're not something that your kids will read about one day but never see, like the dodo bird. They are the last of their kind and critical for our ecosystems. And we believe they are worth fighting for. These are some of our rangers in Indonesia who protect rhinos. And IRF thinks we've got a fighting chance. And so we're going to keep fighting to save these species. The mission of our organization is to ensure the survival of rhinos through strategic partnerships, targeted protection, and scientifically sound interventions. And you'll see what that means as I go through my presentation. Right now, there are 29,500 rhinos left on the planet. That's across all 5 species. When you look at the numbers, when you break them down, the smallest population is the Javan rhino with about 69 individuals. There's fewer than 80 Sumatran rhinos, a little over 3,500 Indian rhinos, a little under 5,500 black rhinos, and a little over 18,000 white rhinos. But these numbers are not as big as they used to be, and so we need to look at what is threatening rhino species. First of all, there are 7.6 billion people on the planet, and that's a major threat to rhinos. Right now, we are using more resources than our Earth can sustain, and we use so many resources, we need 1.7 Earths actually to keep up, but we only have 1. A major problem is habitat loss. Many people think of Brazil when they think of rainforests being cut down, but in Indonesia, there's almost twice as many acres being cut down each year, over 2 million acres. And then there's isolated populations. Because of habitat loss, rhinos are sort of separated into small subpopulations and they don't have a chance to breed. And if they can't make more rhino babies, the population can't grow. There's also a lack of something called political will, and that's when governments really work to save the natural resources of their own country. Sometimes there's corruption, which means government officials are not doing what they said they would do, or they're taking money from people they shouldn't and not doing the work they should do, like protecting natural resources. Or sometimes governments just don't spend the money on conservation. As you know, here in the U.S., we protect wild places like in our national parks and national wildlife refuges. And some countries just don't spend the money like that to protect their own species. So every 8 hours in Africa, a rhino is killed for its horn. I'm sorry, it's a sort of a graphic image, but this is a poached rhino and its baby calf standing next to the mom. Oops, sorry. Moving to the next slide. Nobody wants to look at that for a long time. If we look at the poaching numbers, back in 2007, when the poaching crisis originally started, it peaked in 2015, and the numbers for 2018 are through September. We don't have the final numbers for last year, but it looks like it will be a bit lower than 2017. It's still a lot of rhinos getting poached every year, and that's a major problem, but we continue to fight. So why are people poaching rhinos? Why is this even happening? The main driver is the misbelief that rhino horn has medicinal power, and there are some traditional Asian medicines that use rhino horn, thinking that people will get the power of a rhino if they use it. And in Vietnam is the world's leading rhino horn consumer, and you'll see her holding that rhino horn. She's grinding it up in the bottom of that dish, and they grind it with water and they drink it. Some people take rhino horn and they turn it into jewelry or cups or different things they can sell as a souvenir. And the reason why this is happening recently is because there is more and more disposable income in China and Vietnam. As those countries are developing more, people have more money. And they're no longer just saving money to feed their families. They now have disposable income like we do. So if I have some extra money, I go out to the movies, or I buy myself a new coat or something like that. And because of the traditional medicine, some people in China and Vietnam are spending money on rhino horn. There are countries, this is a list of the countries that are growing the fastest for the ultra high net worth people. So people who are million or billionaires. Bangladesh is the fastest growing population of these ultra wealthy, but as you see, China and Vietnam are number 2 and 3, and that's where this disposable income is found, where people have extra money to spend it on things like elephant ivory or rhino horn. So let's look at rhinos in 2019 and what is going on. In Africa, this is a map of southern Africa, and the countries in light and dark gray are the countries that have rhino populations. So all the way up in eastern Africa, in Kenya and Uganda, and then down to South Africa. And my computer is moving on the slides before I want it to, sorry. White rhinos are considered near threatened, and they live in South Africa, Namibia, Kenya, Zimbabwe, Botswana, Swaziland, Uganda, and Kenya. There were fewer than 100 white rhinos in 1900, and now there are more than 18,000 today. So it is certainly considered a conservation success story in the making, but we still are seeing that the threat of poaching and actual poaching is not letting that population grow back to be as big as it really should be. Black rhinos are critically endangered. There's about 5,400 of them, and they live in South Africa, Namibia, Kenya, Zimbabwe, Tanzania, Zambia, Malawi, Swaziland, Botswana, and Chad, and those are all in southern and eastern Africa. Black rhinos, their population has decreased 98% since 1960, which is the lowest number of their population total was back in 1995. It dipped down to 2,400 animals. It's slowly growing. There are over 4,800 in 2011, and now we're up to almost 5,500. But poaching remains the #1 threat for black rhinos. We have a program in Zimbabwe called the Low-Veld Rhino Trust. This program protects and monitors rhinos in the area. Back in 1990, the number of rhinos on the Low-Veld properties was about 4% of the whole national total in Zimbabwe. And now it's 89% because the population happily is growing thanks to protection. This is a map of Zimbabwe, and you see down in the southern area, sort of that hatched area, that's the Low-Veld region. And the 3 light green areas are conservancies, which are private lands that are put in protection for wildlife. And then the dark green down on the border there, that's a national park. And that's where we find all those rhinos. So just to remind you, sort of this major threat that's been coming in, it looks like a wave, and it really was a wave of poaching that's hitting rhinos. It's subsiding, but it's still a serious threat. And then we look at just the statistics for Zimbabwe, and there's 3 lines here, and I'll tell you how to read this. There's one line that's the solid line all the way at the top, and those are the numbers of all the rhinos in Zimbabwe, and you can see it's growing. There was a little dip in 2010, 2011, but it's up to almost 900. Then there's a line that's little dots, and it started close to the black line, but then it's slowly been declining. And those are the rhinos that are not in the low veld, so in other areas. And you can see how the poaching crisis is really making that number get lower and lower and lower. And then the line that's the sort of hashtags, not hashtags, but like dashes, it started with less than 100 back in 1992, and it's moved up to be almost all of the rhinos in Zimbabwe, and those are the animals protected under our program in the low veld. So this graph shows you that with intensive protection and monitoring, rhino populations can be secured and grow. So what does this really look like? This is a picture back in 1992 when we first started working in the area, and there had been a ton of cattle and other animals that have just eaten everything in sight in the region. So what happened was that the area was protected and nature was allowed to recover. And within 3 years, this is what it looked like. Leaves, and when I see this, I just see rhino food, and that makes me very happy. So our teams, these are rhino horns that have been cut off by our teams. The animals are not hurt, but what they do is they give the animal some medicine to make it sort of go to sleep, kind of like if you have surgery. And they cut off the rhino horn with a chainsaw. But it doesn't hurt the animals. It's the same as if we get our fingernails cut, because that's what rhino horn is made out of. It's made out of a material called keratin. And keratin is what makes our fingernails and our hairs. So, you know, if you get a haircut or get your fingernails cut, it doesn't hurt. And when we cut off a rhino's horn, it doesn't hurt. And the reason why we do this is when a poacher knows that all the rhinos in one area have already had their horns cut off, they are less likely to come in and try and kill the animals for their horn. So what we do is we cut off the horn and we have them in secure lock boxes, and it's registered with the government for security. And it's one of the measures we take to protect the animals. We also monitor them, so we always know which rhino is where. And we work with local communities who help us and tell us, you know, if there's poachers in the area or if they've heard of other activity that shouldn't be going on. We work with community to get information from them. We also do what's called a translocation, which is moving a rhino or a group of rhinos from one area to another. So they capture the rhino and then they move it by truck or sometimes helicopter to a new area, and often we do that so the animal is safe. We also do that to make sure that there are enough animals that can breed with each other so that the population can grow. So this picture is a picture of an animal who had been captured and moved into this big fenced area for while he got used to the new spot. That's called a boma, which is sort of like a really big pen. And then they open the gates of the boma and he can walk right out into his new home. IRF, back in 2011, we started a campaign called Stop Poaching Now. And with that campaign, we've raised over $1.8 million to help protect rhinos in South Africa. This is a map of South Africa, and all these different letters stand for different states. So there's 50 states in the US, but there's 9 states in South Africa. The red circles are different rhino areas where we work. So we work all the way up in Kruger National Park, which is actually has the largest population of rhinos in the world. We work in Swaziland, which is a little country inside of South Africa, and then some reserves along the coast. One's called Pinda, one is Great Fish River, and Addo Elephant National Park. And so we work to buy gear for the rangers to help train them, to buy security cameras or radios and all sorts of things to help rangers keep rhinos safe. One of the things we do, this is a dog, a ranger dog. We train dogs to help protect rhinos. So there's different jobs that rhino ranger dogs do. Some of them can track and smell out and see the footprints of a poacher and track them down so the poacher can be arrested. Others know how to sniff and smell either rhino horn or guns. So if somebody's trying to bring a gun into a national park, the dog can smell it. And dogs have become a very important part of rhino protection. We also help rangers and their families. It's not easy being a ranger, so we help them out in any way we can. Oops, it's already switching slides on me. So those are some of the things we do in Africa. Now we're moving on to Asia, where 3 of the species are found. First, we'll go to India and Nepal, where the greater one-horn rhino lives. There are about 3,500 greater one-horn rhinos. They're really known for their thick skin and deep folds. And here's a map of India. This is India, the whole country, and then this yellow area up here is the state of Assam, and then this big map here is a blow-up of that area. And so these are different areas where IRF works to protect animals. So it's a little bit different than Africa. When you go to Assam, they've got this big, tall elephant grass. And in order to go find rhinos, you got to get on the back of an elephant just to get high up enough to see where the rhinos are. So this is rhino spotting on the back of an elephant. One issue there is they have what's called monsoon season. If you don't know about monsoon season, it's a really amazing phenomenon that happens every year where it rains and rains and rains and rains, and it's pretty incredible. And the ecosystem there has developed to adapt to these incredible rains. But because of climate change, sometimes these rains come a little too hard and a little too fast, and some animals get stranded. Or see this little island, this was all these rhinos, the water came up so quickly that they kind of had to go up on this little island and try and save themselves. So we've done some rhino rescues, but some rhinos and elephants have died because of the flooding. IRF is part of a program called Indian Rhino Vision 2020, and the goal of that project is to have 3,000 wild rhinos in Assam, which is that state in northeast India, and have that population across 7 protected areas by 2020. And so we've hit that mark where we have more than 3,000. We don't have them in 7 areas yet, but if you remember that translocation I was talking about, we're going to be moving some populations to others so we can spread out the population so they can grow. Oops, sorry, I already decided this is the areas where we're working. So some of the things we're doing to prepare is before we move rhinos into a spot, we have to make sure it's safe for rhinos. So these are ranger stations. Remember how those guys were on the backs of elephants because they needed to see up high above the grass? We build these big ranger stations that are up on stilts for 2 reasons. 1, it lets them see farther, and 2, if there's a lot of rain during monsoon season, it keeps them dry. So they live up on the 2nd floor, and then the 3rd floor is sort of an observation tower. So we've built some of these ranger posts. We also train and hire local community members to be rangers. So these are 2 men from the local community. We have given them uniforms and guns, and we've trained them to protect rhinos. So it's employment for local communities who might not have jobs. So we're trying to help communities to feed their families and to build good relations so that they want to have rhinos living in their community. Here's another picture of a translocation. In India, they do it a little differently than they do it in Africa. We put the animals in crates, and then they slide the door up on the crate, and the rhino runs out. And Indian rhinos are a bit feisty. So the rhino on the right, he turned around and wanted to come back and attack that truck. So you see the guys with their cameras sort of moving back. They didn't want the rhino to bump into him. But after he sort of pretended to scare them, he ran off into the grass, and he was just fine. With this program, we've translocated 26 animals into an area called Manas National Park. Oh, and here they are running out of their crates. Usually, as soon as the door opens, they just hightail it out of there as quickly as they can. There have been 16 births. You see the little baby calf hiding down there with its big ears next to mama. And unfortunately, there have been some that have been poached. And part of the problem is that poachers over time are becoming more and more sophisticated. So you see the guy on the left, he's just barefoot with a homemade gun and his shorts and his hoodie. And then in 2014, they're starting to get more sophisticated. And in 2018, this is a picture. These are all pictures taken from the field with camera traps. And you see the picture on the right. Now he looks like he's an army guy and super sophisticated. And it's because the poachers are getting trained too. So that's why we need to work harder and harder to ensure that our rangers are protected and trained and ready to come up to work against any of these poachers. So as I was saying, we did all of those translocations, and there have been some births, and we went from 0 rhinos in Manas National Park to 34 in just 10 years. So it's still a small population, but it's a really good start, and we're very hopeful. And this picture makes me happy, 1, because of that cute little baby rhino, but 2, to see all that lush grass. Indian rhinos love to eat that grass, and so all I see is happy rhinos and lots of rhino food. But there still is uncertainty. We work in a lot of uncertainty. You know, we've got poaching issues, we've got climate change, and so we always have to be on our toes to make sure we can face whatever challenge comes towards us. One of the uncertainties is the poverty in the area. Many of the people living near rhinos don't have a lot of money, and it's often difficult for them to find food to feed their families. This is a family near Manas National Park. And so people often ask us, well, what does conservation mean if you can't feed your family? So in addition to just saving the rhinos and making sure they're safe, we're also working with communities. People who work in the communities, this is a tea plantation. The plants they're picking are little tea leaves, and those get dried, and then when you have a cup of tea, that's where it comes from. And they hold that bag on their head, and they throw the tea leaves in the bag after they pick them. So we've been working on a community engagement program to help the communities living in the area, and it's with pigs. So we buy pigs, and then they raise those pigs, and the pigs have baby pigs, and they share the baby pigs with the families. And pigs are an important source of protein through pork. And so by raising pigs and having pig babies and sharing it with the community, we've been helping local communities be more food secure. This is, oh, sorry about that gray bar. The woman on the right, that's Dr. Susie Ellis. She's the head of our organization. And this is a picture of her sharing one of the pigs and handing the pig over to the local community. Now we're going to move on to Indonesia, where 2 of the rhino species live, in addition to tigers. So if you look in the bottom right, all those islands are Indonesia. It's in the Southeast Asia, sort of between mainland Asia and Australia. It's about 17,000 islands make up the country of Indonesia. And one of those big islands is called Sumatra. And the big picture in the top right is the lower part of Sumatra. And the yellow are the 2 national parks in Sumatra, where we work. Let me go back. And then there's also a park down in Java Island, which is the bottom of the triangle, called Ujung Kulon National Park. And I'll tell you about those when we talk about Javan rhinos. So Javan rhinos, they're critically endangered. There are only 69 Javan rhinos left in the entire planet, and they all live in 1 national park. This is a map, the red hash and outline here. They used to live up in India and Bangladesh, in Thailand, Laos, Myanmar, Vietnam, all the way through Malaysia and then down into Indonesia. And now they all live in 1 tiny little area here in Indonesia. And one of the major threats is a palm tree called Aranga palm. And it grows so densely and so thick that no rhino food can grow under it. And so the jungle's green, but it's not useful for Javan rhinos. So what we do is we have permission from the government to go into the park and cut down the Aranga trees. And then if you just let nature do its thing, all these native plant species start growing back. And so we like to call this the rhino salad bar, because what happens is there'll be an area where the Aranga palm is everywhere and no rhinos are living there because there's no rhino food. And then we cut down the Aranga, the food plants come in, and the rhinos come in. So what it does is it makes more space for rhinos. I want to show you, hopefully you can see this. This is a video made by the National and it's video made by the National And these are all pictures taken from camera trap videos in the park. So the teams set up these cameras, they attach them to trees, and whenever there's movement, that turns the camera on. And so these animals are so rare that people often don't get to see them in the wild, but they get to keep track of where they are by the camera traps. So we fill the forest with camera traps, and we can keep track of these incredible animals. You'll see that they're really muddy because they love rolling in the mud. Rolling in the mud is called wallowing, and they wallow for two reasons. One reason is to cool off because the mud is nice and cool, but it also protects their skin. There are lots of biting bugs that can bite them, but the mud creates a protective layer, and it also protects them from the sun so they don't get a sunburn. So there's a cat with its mom, playing with its mom, trying to bite its ears. So these subtitles are in Bahasa Indonesia, which is the language of Indonesia. So Manggusu anak is children are born. And here's a picture of them wallowing. This is them rolling in the mud, and they make these wallows themselves by just sort of digging and scratching and then rolling around. They love being in mud wallows. Oops. So one threat, and you all may have heard of this happening back in December, but there's a big volcano right near the national park where all the rhinos live. It's called Anak Krakatau, which means son of Krakatoa. There was a volcano called Krakatoa that erupted in 1883, and it killed over 40,000 people with a big tsunami. And it was so big, it was heard all the way in Indonesia. And so after that explosion, a new volcano started growing, and it's called the Son of Krakatau. This is it when it was erupting recently. And it's growing so fast, it grows 16 feet a year. That's how much higher the mountain grows every year. So you see Anak Krakatau is right here, located in the area just between, this is Sumatra Island on the top and Java Island on the bottom. And there was a explosion in December, and it created a tsunami or tidal wave. And the red areas are areas where the tidal wave hit and affected communities. And Ujung Kulon National Park is this peninsula here and this island. And this is where all of the Javan rhinos in the entire world live, in this little area. So we were very concerned that the rhinos were threatened by this tsunami. This is a picture of a local community. The wave came in and destroyed a lot of homes and hurt a lot of people. 2 of our team members' homes were destroyed, and this is what it looks like after a huge tidal wave hits your house. So we're paying to rebuild their homes, and we're also sending supplies and first aid to help them as they rebuild their lives. Luckily, none of the Javan rhinos were hurt. There's a theory that the animals can sense the ground shaking, and they run to high ground. So none of the rhinos were hurt. But having this natural disaster really opened our eyes to what the critical needs are for this species. The first is zero poaching. The population is so small that it can't sustain any losses from poaching. The second is the need for population growth, more space, and that's why we're cutting down the oranga palm to make more rhino salad bars so they have more habitat and more food to eat. And the second is to create a second population, so to do one of those translocations so that not all of the animals are in one national park. We'd like to have them in 2 national parks so that in case something bad happens in one, we still have the rest of the other ones in the other park. And finally, the last species, last but not least, is the Sumatran rhino, which is probably the rhino most at risk of going extinct. There are fewer than 80, so the population is technically bigger than the Javan rhino, but they're not all in one spot. They're dispersed all over Sumatra. So if we look at these, this map, this is some of the islands in Indonesia. This is Sumatra is the long island with the Loser ecosystem in the north, and Bukit Barisan Selatan National Park and Waikambas National Park are in the south. Java Island below that, that's where you found the Javan rhinos. And then the island of Borneo, there's a little tiny pocket in Kutai Barat forest. There's 2, maybe 3 rhinos there. So the threats for Sumatran rhinos are poaching, of course, and then habitat loss and fragmentation. There's always a risk of disease or natural disasters, and what's called small population effects. So if these animals don't have a chance to breed, the population is so small. So let's say you're stuck in a forest and it's just you and your mom. You can't make more babies, so you guys wouldn't be able to grow. And so that's what happens with these tiny populations of rhinos. These are our rhino protection units. They protect the rhinos in the forest. Our teams protect 70% of the world's Sumatran rhinos and 100% of the world's Javan rhinos. They have eliminated poaching in the areas in which they work. And then our second program is a rhino sanctuary where we're working to breed animals. So there are, the adults are Andalas and Harapan are the 2 boys up top. And then the girls are Ratu, Bina, and Rosa. And they live in the jungle in a big fenced-in area. And they're taken care of by keepers and veterinarians. This is one of our veterinarians. She's holding an ultrasound. So what she's doing is every week, the veterinarians check the females to see if they're ready to have a baby. So they use an ultrasound, which is a machine that looks sort of like an X-ray that looks inside the rhino, and they check and see whether the eggs are big enough for them to have babies. And it's worked. We've had 2 babies. The first one was Andatu. His name is because his mom is Ratu and his dad's Andalas, so they named him Andatu. He was born back in 2012. And then 4 years later, his little sister Delilah arrived. And so we're thrilled about these 2. And we're working to breed the rest of the rhinos, and hopefully we'll have some more calves very soon. The critical needs for these animals, I love this picture. This guy's in a wallow, and you can see how hairy they are. The immediate needs for this species is to create no-go protection zones in the park, so areas where no poachers can go, and rhinos and the other animals like tigers and elephants that live in the forest are safe and don't have to worry. And then at the same time, we're trying to capture the little tiny populations of 2 and 3 and 4 animals and bring them into the breeding program so that we can make more rhino babies. So we've created this project called the Sumatran Rhino Survival Alliance. It's a group of organizations that are fundraising as much money as we can to do just that, to capture the animals out of the wild and bring them into a breeding program. So all these logos are different organizations that are supporting the project. So the plan is we're putting out camera traps. So remember those videos that we put out camera traps so we know where animals are in the forest. And so we'll locate the animals and then capture them and make sure, do the assessment with the ultrasound and make sure that they can have babies. And then if they can, then we're going to move them to the Sumatran Rhino Sanctuary and hopefully make as many babies as possible. And once the population has grown back up, then we'll be able to reintroduce them into the wild, into those protected areas. So I want to show you a video that we made with our partners about this project. All right, so, the future of rhinos is up to all of us. We can all work together to ensure they are safe and sound. Some people sometimes feel like, oh, this is happening so far away. How can I even be a part of it? But talking about rhinos and talking about what they're going through is important. Tell your friends and family about rhinos and about the poaching crisis and about how people work together to try and save these incredible animals. It is not all doom and gloom. We remain hopeful that we will save the 5 rhino species from extinction. We have effective actions in place, and we are working very hard to make sure those actions happen. That includes the strategic translocation. So this is a rhino that's just come out of a truck in India, getting ready to explore his new home. We have intensified protection. These are the rhino protection units in Indonesia, patrolling through the jungles of Indonesia. We train people, so you know, nobody knows how to be a ranger. Just it's not something you grow up knowing how to do. So we spend a lot of time in ranger schools supporting these guys and teaching them everything they need to know about being a ranger. Everything from basic survival skills in the forest to how to track and look for footprints and see where rhinos have gone, and how to arrest poachers. So there's a long series of trainings. And of course, our captive breeding program, we need to make more rhino babies to increase the population. And then the economic benefits I was talking about. This is one of those pigs that was in that program with the communities. And we have different programs with different communities. We hire local communities to work on our teams, and that gives people jobs and security. And then reducing the demand. And so that means trying to change the hearts and minds of people who do buy rhino horn, to encourage them not to buy it, and to change their opinion about consuming rhino horn. And of course, winning hearts and minds. This is a group of kids in Zimbabwe, and we have a program there that helps build schools, and we buy textbooks, and they're all holding workbooks, rhino workbooks that talk about rhinos. And by educating kids, we can help them learn about different opportunities and different jobs they can get other than growing up to be a poacher. And so there's a saying in Africa. It says, if you want to go fast, go alone. But if you want to go far, go together. And that's what we really seek to do. We seek to find partners who will work hand in hand with us to save the 5 rhino species. So I just wanted to thank you all for your time. My email's at the bottom of the screen. If anybody wants to get in touch with me, feel free to send me an email if you have other questions. And I think we have enough time to do questions and answers. I will stop my screen sharing and see if anybody has questions. Now let me see. Okay, I didn't see the chat section, so let me go through here real quick. Let me see what questions you asked. Are more being poached than being born? That's a great question. So in some of the little populations, yes, the poaching rate is higher than the birth rate. In most areas, it's not. In most areas, we're just outpacing poaching, but it is a constant effort to try and keep ahead of that poaching rate because the poaching is so rampant. Oh, it looks like I answered the question. Okay. Have I visited all of the locations? Which one is my favorite? I have visited almost all of them. I haven't been to India yet, but I'm going in 2 weeks. I love South Africa. It's so beautiful there, and the people are incredible. And there's wide open savannas, and you can see rhinos and all the other animals too. It's really beautiful. It's really wonderful. Does the horn regrow? Yes, that's a great question. So horn grows just like our hair and nails. So when the teams cut off the horn, it takes about 1.5 to 2 years before the horn grows back. And so they go and they cut the horn off again every 2 years. And that also gives an opportunity for the veterinarians to do a health check on the rhinos. So what they do is they give them the medicine to sort of put them to sleep, like surgery. They do full blood workup and check up on their bodies. Often if there's a mother, the calf will be there, so they'll check on the calf as well. And that's when they cut off the horn, and then they put sort of like an antiseptic on the horn just to keep it clean. And and then they give them another medicine, and it's a medicine that wakes them up. So you give them the medicine, and then you run away because it takes about a minute, and all of a sudden the rhino gets up and runs off. So, yes, the horn goes. Next question. Okay, I noticed that Disney is on the organization list. Have they taken any rhinos to the animal park in Florida? So the Animal Kingdom does have rhinos in their zoo, but Disney has a part of their organization that's a conservation fund, and they help pay to protect the rhinos in the wild. So the rhinos that are at the park are zoo animals, but there's also the protection that they do in the field. And so Disney's one of our partners. They give money to IRF, and then we pay the teams in the field. How long have I worked with rhinos? So I've been with the International Rhino Foundation for 3 years now, and before that I worked at World Wildlife Fund working on rhinos and elephants. So, but I have loved animals since I was a little kid. I'm an animal person. Some people who got on early saw my cat walking by. I have to be around animals all the time, and so I needed to find a career where I was working with or for animals. I thought maybe a veterinarian, but I didn't want to. I think the idea of working with animals that are hurt was going to be too upsetting for me. So, and I like adventure and science, so that's why I selected this job. What is my coolest story about a rhino? Oh boy, let's see. Well, I have a cool story. So in Swaziland, which is the little country inside Africa, it's inside South Africa, it's sort of surrounded by South Africa, there was a little rhino who was orphaned. His mom was killed by a poacher. And so the teams there they saved the little rhino, and they raised him. Actually, it was a her, raised her up, and they took care of her. And then when she got bigger, she went back out into the wild. And when you go drive around in the park now, if she sees people coming, because she was raised by people, she'll come over and say hi. And she now has a son who sort of follows her around, and he is a wild animal. You know, he wasn't raised by people. So he always sort of hangs back, but the mom comes up. And so last time I was there, the mom came up, and we were in this truck, and they've always got like flies and mud and dirt all over them. And she started coming up, and she started scratching her ears and her head on the truck. Well, they're so big that the whole truck was like shaking back and forth, and it was just a really magical experience because she was a wild animal, but it seemed like she still remembered who took care of her when she was a little one. What drove my interest in rhinos? I think just I love animals, and I love conservation, and this is an animal severely in need of help from humans who are harming it. So it really feels like my job is a place where I can really make a difference and save animals. And one great thing is, rhinos aren't the only animals that live in the areas where we're working. So the work we do also protects Sumatran rhinos. We protect the tigers in India. We help protect the elephants in Africa. So it's a pretty incredible opportunity to save a lot of species and beautiful ecosystems and habitats. They're really, rhinos get to live in really beautiful areas. Someone asked, does cutting off the horn give rhinos a disadvantage in the wild? That's a great question. Rhinos use their horn sometimes to fight and spar. Sometimes they use it to dig up plants or things like that. But we've seen studies that show that rhinos are not at a disadvantage without their horn. That they can still fight and do everything they need to do. They can still eat plenty of food. The one exception we do make is that if a rhino cow is about to have a calf, or if she does have a calf, then we don't cut the horn so that she can protect her baby if she needs just the extra horn. That's the one time we don't cut a horn. And then once the calf is larger and doesn't need mom's protection all the time, then she gets back into the system of getting her horn cut off. But that's a great question, and one that we were concerned about and people have done studies for. If I had to choose one animal to work with besides rhinos, what would it be? Oh, I don't know. They're all so incredible. Maybe elephants? I don't know. Or orangutans? I don't know. There's so many incredible animals out there. It's hard to pick. But I do like big animals, I guess. Elephants and rhinos and orangutans and gorillas. And um, there's so many animals out there that need our help. So if any of you are interested in it, I highly recommend looking for a job in the conservation area. You're not going to make as much money as a doctor or a lawyer, but you get to do cool things like go to see rhinos in the wild. There's one question, is there a specific reason as to why the poachers don't just capture and then release the rhinos after removing their horns rather than killing them? That's a great question. Yes, so teams can go in and doctors can put down the rhino and cut off the horn, and then the rhino will wake up. But in order to do that, you have to be very careful and not move fast, and it's a very, there's, science to the amount of medicine based on the weight of the rhino. And rhino poachers need to just get in, get the horn, and get out as quickly as possible. And unfortunately, that means they're not worried about saving that animal. They're just worried about getting the horn and getting out as quickly as possible. And unfortunately, that means the fastest way to do that is to kill the animal and cut its horn off. So it would be great if they could do it in a way that didn't hurt the animals, but it's killing the animals. But we really don't want anybody taking their horns off. It's sort of it's a bit of a sad solution to take the horns off of perfectly healthy rhinos, but the rhino poaching crisis has become so extreme that that's sort of where we've gotten to at this point. So sadly, they just go in, chop it off, and run. So that's it. Does anybody else have any more questions? Like I said, you can also email me if you have more questions. You can reach out to us at info@rhinos.org. You can always follow us on Facebook and Instagram, and we have a YouTube channel where we don't have a lot of videos up now, but I've been told by my communications team that I need to take more videos when I'm out in the field, so we will have more videos hopefully this year. Oh, there's one. Josh says I can stay as long as you'd like. Don't worry too much about time. Okay, if anybody has more questions, feel free to go ahead and ask. I can try and find the picture of that rhino that came and scratched the mama that scratched her face on my on the truck. I know I can't. Let's see. I think it's on my phone, so I can't show you. I'm sorry. That was a pretty magical experience. So I'll just wait a few more minutes to see if anybody else has any more questions. Is there anybody out there who's thinking about a career in wildlife conservation? And if so, what animals are you interested in? When I was really little, I was interested in chimpanzees. I don't know if you all have heard of Jane Goodall, but she's a woman who loved nature and wildlife, and she wanted to save chimpanzees. So back in the 60s, she moved to Africa and moved out into the forest. And she lived in the jungles of Tanzania. And it was a little dangerous, so her mom came with her and lived in the tent in the national park with her. And she studied chimpanzees. And she, wasn't an expert at the time, but she became the world expert on chimpanzees. And she left the field a little while to go back to England and become a doctor. She got her PhD in conservation and went right back to Tanzania. And she's still working on chimpanzee conservation, and she's 83 or 4 now. So she's dedicated her whole life to saving chimpanzees. And when I was a little girl, it was really inspiring to see somebody who just followed her passion, that she loved animals and she wanted to save them, and so she made a life out of it. And so I said, well, I want to do that too. And I didn't have to drag my mom to a tent in Africa, which I'm sure my mom is happy about, but I've been able to go to many incredible places in the world and see amazing, incredible things and really inspiring things. And most importantly, to meet amazing people, people who don't have a lot but have dedicated their lives to saving the species that live in the areas around them. And that's one of the things that really sort of keeps me going and inspires me to keep doing my job, is that there are people who don't have a lot and they understand just the intrinsic value of nature and wildlife. And even if there's a threat that an animal might eat their food, eat their crops or something like that. They still understand how important it is to have all the species on the planet. And so getting to meet people like that is an incredible experience. So I don't think we have any more questions, but as I said, shoot me a question at info@rhinos.org if there's other stuff. And I just want to thank you all so much for the opportunity to present to you about rhinos and some of the work we're doing to save them. And yeah, thanks so much. It's like I got one more person. And yeah, thanks so much. It's like I got one more person texting one more thing, so I'll hold on just a second. Great. Oh, thank you. Thanks for having me. And if you ever need me to come back, I'd love to talk more about rhinos. I could talk about rhinos all day. Oh, Apex High School, thank you so much. Thanks for joining us today. It was great to have you on. Great. Well, thanks, everyone. Bye.